All right, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's all ready to get going. This is day number 3. We're going to talk about drawings today. So go ahead, grab your coffees, get ready. We're going to jump into some content. I have a lot of good stuff for you guys today. So let's get started. Let's take a look at today's agenda. So for today, we'll briefly go over some introductions, let you guys know who's presenting today, go through a couple different welcoming slides. From there, we'll transition into our full 4 sections of content for today. We'll go through a brief closing. Now for today, your presenters are Jared Spaniel, again out of our Northern California office, myself, Brad Rock, and we also have Bill Mitchell and Enrique Garcia out of our Arizona tech team. Bill Mitchell and Enrique Garcia are 2 of our senior applications engineers. You guys probably talked to them on the phone if you've ever used the tech support from Digital Dimensions. So just keep an eye out. Those guys will help us out with the questions and answers. Our first presenter today is going to be Jared.
All right, thanks, Brad. Hello and good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all back to the 3rd installment of our What's New webinar series. So today I got some great content on what's new in drawings, and I'm sure this is going to be very valuable to a lot of you since I'm guessing this is the method most of you use to communicate your designs. So the first thing I kind of just want to go over real quick was a new default setting in the chamfer callouts and dual dimensions. So you can see here that before it used to be, the text used to be middle and the dual dimension used to be top. Now in 2016, it's the text is bottom and the dual dimension is right. So I just want to make you guys aware of that, and this is controlled through the Tools, Options, Document Properties, Dimensions tab under chamfer. I'm not going to show that, just want to make you guys aware, and you can check out the images there. So the next couple things I'm going to go over are some new improvements to dimensioning. We have foreshortening of linear dimensions, a couple improvements to hole callouts and the dual dimensioning, and then also smart dimensioning for simple threads, and a couple things on drawing views. We're going to look at center mark scaling, a couple additional hatch patterns that have been added, and then the addition of model break views within drawings. So let's go ahead and jump into SolidWorks, and I'll show you guys some of these great new features of SolidWorks 2016. So the first thing we have is a dimensioning improvement that they made for drawings. So now whenever you select a point or a sketch entity point, if you click off into space, it will not deselect that point, and you can still create your full dimension. So you can see here, I create my dimension, I've clicked off into space. Just going to show that one more time. So whenever you do a smart dimension and you select a point, you will be able to maintain that point selection even if you click off in anywhere in space and still complete your full dimension. So pretty cool, just another user enhancement, make things a little bit easier when you guys are dimensioning stuff. You don't have to go back and re-click on those items. So the next thing was the foreshortened dimensions. So now we have the ability to do a foreshortened dimension that just makes your drawings a little bit cleaner looking. You can see my dimension here on the left. This is just a smart dimension. This is what it would have looked like in 2015. We're just looking at a simple section view of this part. The top here I have sectioned out. And then in 2016 now you can see the ability to add this foreshortened dimension. And that is just simply done by a smart dimension, and you can just pull that off of here and then you get your smart dimension. It's just a little bit cleaner looking, a little bit nicer of a user interface. And the way you get to that is under Tools, or System Options, sorry, Document Properties, Dimensions, Linear Dimensions. And then down here at the bottom you have the option to check this automatic checkbox under this foreshortened menu. And they also give you a few selections for different types of dimensioning arrows. So you can have the cut arrow or the double arrow. So that was the foreshortening dimensions. Next we have the hole callouts, the dual dimension hole callouts. So whenever you guys add a hole callout from your annotation tab in your command manager, you have the hole callout command up here. Whenever you add a hole callout now, dual dimensions are grouped a little bit differently than they were before. Now the tolerances stay with the dimension, whereas before they were kind of broken apart, so it was maybe a little bit harder to interpret what numbers belong to what tolerances or what dimensions belong to what tolerances. Now it's grouped a little bit cleaner and easier to see what's going on here, and this is just controlled by your property manager of your dimension. Down here under dual dimension, you can just select this checkbox to enable that dual dimension, turn it on or off. So when you have that on, just a little bit cleaner of a look there. Okay, so the next one I wanted to talk about was simple threads, or smart dimensioning for simple threads. So whenever you guys do a threaded hole with a cosmetic thread, you can still do, of course, your hole callout example from your annotation and do your hole callout command up here and make your full hole callout with all your dimensions. But now you can also, with Smart Dimension, just clear that out, you can add just a simple dimension with your diameter and your thread pitch just by using the Smart Dimension command opposed to the hole callout command. Very simple enhancement, just makes things a little bit cleaner. Another like cleaner and easier to interpret enhancement for drawings. So the next one I want to show was center mark scaling. So now we have the ability to scale our center marks based on view scale or sheet scale. So this is kind of another enhancement to clean things up. If you go to document properties once again, and under dimensions and centerline center marks, you have this checkbox for scale by view scale. So if you have that checked, it'll make it, it'll keep the center line or the center mark scale to your view scale. If you uncheck it and then go back, you can see my center mark now gets larger, which is now scaling to my sheet scale. So I'll just show that again. Go up here, document properties, centerline center marks, check my scale by view scale, okay, and it keeps my center mark scale to my view scale. Just a little bit cleaner. I would assume you'd probably want to keep that enabled. It keeps the center mark scaled. If you get a really small view or something, and you don't have that checked, your center marks will be rather large. So the next addition I wanted to show was some additions of new hatch patterns that they made. And that is, of course, under your annotation tab in your command manager. Under area hatch fill, if some of you guys like to use this, whenever you select your region, they've added about 11 new different images for hatch patterns. So all the way from, I think, carbon steel down to thermoset plastic has been added. And when you scroll through those, I'll zoom in a little bit here, you can scroll through those and see all the new hatch patterns that they're adding for these different materials. So another nice thing they added in there, if you guys like to use hatch patterns for specific materials, you can now do that for some more specific materials. So pretty cool there. Another big one they added this year was the model break views within your drawing, or within your model, I guess I should say. So we all know that we were able to add the model break views to our drawing views, but now we can add a configuration of a model break view in our part. So very simply, I'm using the MBD tab here, we have this option for model break view. And you can see I have a model break view. I will clear that out. So I have a rather long part here. So I'll just go ahead and add a model break view, and it gives me an option to select these two planes, and I can drag these planes very easily to wherever I want and shorten this part. It gives you some other options here. I like the styles. You can select like the jagged cut or the kind of the curvy cut depending on how you want to show that view. You can change your gap, things like that. Very similar to what we had in the drawings before, but now within our actual part. And you can see here now I've created this configuration of a model break view and a break step under my tree here. So if I jump back over to my drawing, you can now see here when I select my drawing view under the reference configuration, I have this option that now says show in exploded or model break state. So if I check that, I can now show that model break view very easily linked to my configuration in my actual part. And of course you still have the option to do it the old way, where under view layout you can make your break and select your drawing view, and then add your lines that way and make your cut similar to like that. So you can do it that way. You can control your gap size. So now you just have a few other options within your actual model to control that, opposed to having to do it in your actual view. All right, so just a brief summary of what we talked about, some of the new default updates to the dual dimension options. The dimensioning using endpoints or sketch points without having to click off of those. The new foreshortened linear dimensions. The group dual dimensions and whole callouts for easier readability. And then the simple dimensions using the Smart Dimension tool on cosmetic threads. The ability to scale center marks to your view. The new selection of hatch patterns that were added for some specific materials. And then the configuration-based model break views in the model. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass that back over to Brad for some more great drawings.
So our next section, I'm going to talk a little bit about detailing models. Now, I have a lot of different content to show you guys in here, so I'm going to start off looking at both at first aid and assembly. Once we finish up with the assembly, I have two quick things to show you in there. We'll jump into a drawing and show you a couple details within the drawing, or what's changing in the drawings themselves. So let's take a look at this assembly. Now, I realize that we told you guys today is about drawings, so there's a lot of things that have been introduced this year to help us out with the detailing, and specifically in the manufacturing world, outside of just the two-dimensional drawings. You start to see that a number of different companies are getting away from this. So to address this, SolidWorks is actually introducing a number of new features for the 3D model as well to give us the same feel that we would see in drawings in the past. Now, one of the new features is actually the ability to add a watermark in a part or an assembly. How we perform this action is simply accessing the Annotations tab. You'll notice that there's a new option for 2D Notes area. Selecting a note or adding an annotation in this 2D Notes area will allow us to create a watermark. So I'm going to go ahead and add a quick note here. I'll just simply type, this is a watermark. We'll scale it up, and hopefully I typed that incorrectly. Didn't misspell that. And I did. So I've created the first note in here, calling this thing a watermark. Now this thing's a typical annotation, right? I can drag this thing around, set it wherever I want to. The problem is this is sitting on top of my model. Now with SolidWorks 2016, you have the ability to create this note and actually use this option in the bottom, or I'm sorry, right-click on the option and change it to a watermark. And then you'll get a new panel on the bottom to say where this thing sits. Does it sit on top of the geometry, behind the geometry, and to adjust the transparency of it as well. So we can make this watermark look like a traditional watermark here. Additional details have been added in the parts and assemblies to allow us to control different aspects of the model. So things like axes, planes, all the verbiage and labels, all the text that's being controlled on those, they're now all scalable. So if you look at the properties in here, under detailing, all of these now respect this option for always display text size at the same size, or text at the same size. We can also control the font and the size of the labels and axes and points. Get everything to pull up to the correct size. For our next feature, we'll actually jump now back into the drawings, the traditional 2D drawings that we're all very familiar with. SolidWorks has added a couple of advanced features this year to allow us to customize the view of these drawings. One of those changes has been in the section dialog. So if we look here, we currently have this section. Every time we create a section view, we get this display showing us where the section view lives and dies, or what it looks like. Now, in SolidWorks 2016, we have the ability to go in and change this change this option. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in here, go to Views, Section, and I can now change the view type. So in this case, we're looking at the traditional standard with connector. So you have the two arrows with the line connecting them. I can show the alternative with connector or without connector, or I can show the standard without connector. So showing this thing here, you can see how the section view updates now with the section view cut. So instead of getting a line across our model now, we have the display still telling us where the section view lives, but without the line crossing through our model. And so we can toggle through each of those different options. Now for our next feature, I'm going to go ahead and jump into an assembly drawing. So I'll look at a component that has a note block already put into it here for us. Now this note block is using some new functionality that Jared's going to cover for us as far as numbering, but I want to show you guys some cool functionality as far as flag noting. So in the past, we all know this is a pretty tedious process, right? Anytime we wanted to add a flag note, we had to go into a specific library, grab the component, and push it into our drawing. New this year, you'll notice that flag notes can actually be inserted into our notes here simply by selecting on the component. So in this case, if I want to select the 1, I have the option on the left-hand side of adding the border from here. So in this case, if I want to add like a hexagon border around my 1, simply changing the border style. You'll notice that there is a new check mark here as well called Add to Flag Note Bank. And this thing's actually pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and select it for a couple different options here in this drawing. So I've done it for the number 1 so far. Do the same thing for the number 2 here. Then I'll just make this a square circle. Add it to the Flag Note Bank, and you're seeing that it's populating the bank down here for us. And I'll do number 5 as well. Again, adding it to the Flag Note Bank. Now the reason that I like this Flag Note Bank is once you've created this, you can actually start to reutilize this bank in other things. So in this case, if I want to use a balloon, I can access the Flag Note Bank through the balloon interface. So on the left-hand side, checking the Flag Note Bank will allow me to select the different notes in the title block or in the notes block there for us. So in this case, if I want to click on 5, I can now place this 5 icon and associate it with its particular object. In this case, I'll do 3 and 1. So I place the first 3, and we see that everything comes through the same way it's displayed in the block. The coolest thing about this is we can now eliminate manual processes as well that we've done in the past. Every time we went in and updated these flag notes, we'd have to then go in and change the balloon item. This year, we can actually change it simply from this interface up here. Changing the note, like from a triangle to a diamond, will update the balloon as well. All right. Now for the last couple of things I have here for this part of the presentation, I want to show you guys some new functionality for creating notes attached to different aspects or different models. Now, we've all become familiar over the years of creating notes with linked properties, I hope. You'll notice that this year you can actually create a note and link it to a property within a subcomponent of an assembly that you're looking at. So in this case, I'm going to change this option over to Model Found here. I'll do it to the selected component, and you'll notice that this selection set actually updates based on what I'm clicking on. So currently it's on the entire assembly. I can change it to the knuckle and access the property strictly from the knuckle here. So in this case, if we look at date, we'll say the date publishes as 1/20/2013. In this component, the expander wedge, same thing. We can look at the date and see the difference in all this information as it's populating. This can be used in a number of different applications, and we can simply define what we're trying to refine it towards. All right, so that concludes my section on the drawings here. So let's do a brief summary. We talked a little bit about the new section view improvements, the additions of this flag note bank, balloons being able to link to that bank, adding sub-properties for components and assemblies, so linking them, adding watermarks in parts and assemblies, and controlling the fonts and information for the access point and labels. Again, Jared Spaniel with Drawing Performance.
All right, thanks, Brad. All right, so let's go over a few things on drawing performance. So a couple of the new features that we have the ability to now rearrange stack balloons in your drawing and also sort those stacked balloons. We can link some custom property values to one sheet. I'm going to show you guys these in a second. Then we have the new performance improvements with the full scene anti-aliasing, which is basically just better performance due to now they're caching the textures rather than the full geometry of your views. We have the new performance evaluation. We have some additional enhancements to drawing sheets like the automatic border wizard, the edit sheet format command, and the changing the sheet scale from the status bar. Let's go ahead and jump into SolidWorks, show you a couple of these. Okay, so now the balloons, we now have the ability whenever you have a list or a bunch of balloons kind of in order, we have the ability to rearrange these balloons very simply by holding the shift key and dragging these balloons in any order we would like. So just once again shift key and dragging the balloons around, and we can reorder these balloons in any order. Pretty cool little enhancement. And then also to go along with that, we have the ability to numerically reorder these by right-click and sort stack using this sort stack command. So if we just hit sort stack, we get a numerical order. So once again, that was shift to drag and drop those balloons and move them around, and then right-click sort stack to reorder them numerically. Very cool. Okay, so the next thing kind of want to go over was the custom property values now the same as linking them to one sheet. So that's controlled up here in our options under document properties. And drawing sheets, we now have this multi-sheet custom property source selection where we can turn on use custom property value from the sheet on all sheets, and then we can select what sheet number that is. So if we have a custom property value under PRP sheet, that is, we want to link throughout all sheets, just by selecting this box and selecting the sheet number, we can populate that custom property throughout all the drawing sheets in our drawing. Pretty useful. Okay, so the next thing we had was the performance eval. So this is controlled through the Evaluate tab, and under the Command Manager here, Performance Evaluation. And what this basically gives you the option or the ability to do is check your performance of your drawings and how long it's taking each individual sheet to load, if there's any assembly performance issues, and any issues that you may be having that are slowing down your load or opening time, you can kind of gauge in here with your times and pull those out and say, you know, if I have a problem that's taking a really long time to load, you can narrow that down and figure out what's going on. If there's an error within your assembly or within your drawing that's causing a long load or open time, you can now easily just take a look at that and see what your performance is. Okay, the next thing we had was some enhancements to the automatic border, or controlling your borders. So now we have some more controls to this border. So under sheet format, they also added a edit sheet format button on the Command Manager. So you can still do the right click and get to edit sheet format this way, or you can access it from your Command Manager up here and just say edit sheet format, and that brings you into the ability to edit your sheet. So I'll go ahead and turn off my title block so you guys can see this a little clearer. If you go into automatic border up here, you get this automatic border wizard that comes up, and you can go through this, and then you get these options for your zone size of your borders. So you can either select, you know, 50 millimeters from center as a default, or you can do evenly sized rows and columns and select however many rows and columns you would like to see on your drawings for the location of your views. So if you like to have a lot of rows, you can easily select rows, up those numbers in rows and columns. You also have the ability to change some margins, just a lot of functions in here. You can make your zone dividers larger. So if you want to make all your zone dividers larger, you can do that. Or you can make the centers, only the center zone dividers larger. Zoom out. So just some extra additional controls for these borders. And then we can also add a margin mask. So hitting the plus sign under margin mask will bring up this margin mask. And so if you want to block out some of these borders in certain areas of your drawing for notes or some kind of company logo or something like that, you can go ahead and do that very easily, and that'll just block out this section here. So you can see the section I masked with my margin now is the column markings, and the letters and numbers have been blocked out of that area. So when I bring my title block back, you can now see, and then of course I can edit my sheet. I can exit out of my edit sheet format here up in the Command Manager, or I can come out of it here from the confirmation corner or the Command Manager key. And just as an example of the masking, if you want to see what that looks like, you see on this sheet how we have this part masked off, and then we have our location of our drawing and our copyright or something of that nature, if you'd like to put that in there. And the next thing we have was the ability to change your sheet format from your status bar. So now down here we have this pull-down menu from the status bar that gives us the ability to change our sheet format directly from this status bar. This is pretty cool. So you can see I can change my view scales, and then all my view scales for that sheet come in looking a little bit larger and filling up my sheet a little better so I can easily read that. So that's pretty cool. Just down here, just by a click from this drop down, we can change that view scale. Very simple, but very useful addition just for ease of access. All right, so let's go back into the PowerPoint and look at kind of some of the things we talked about. So we talked about the stack balloon reorder and sort, the improved performance with the new full scene anti-aliasing, being able to link the custom sheet properties to all sheets by using the options, and then being able to look at our load and rebuild times using the new performance evaluator. The command manager now having the edit sheet format command. Some expanded zone layout and border controls for our sheet borders, and the sheet scale access on the status bar. So that's all I had for you guys today for the drawings. I'm going to pass this back over to Brad.
All right, so to move forward, our last section. Now our last section today, we're going to be talking about communication tools. So in particular, today I want to talk to you guys about the latest enhancements to SolidWorks Inspection. SolidWorks Inspection is a fairly new tool to SolidWorks. It was introduced last year, maybe the year before then, I might be mistaken. But we've seen resounding success with it. A lot of users are very interested in this tool functionality, getting this thing in-house. So there's been a lot of development work done on this to answer a lot of questions and to solve a lot of issues with it. So let's jump in. I'm going to start today in the drawing, a 2D drawing. Now this is in SolidWorks. We've gone through, completed the 2D drawing, and now we're trying to generate the inspection documentation. In previous years, or in the last couple of versions of this, it's been difficult to find the components that we're trying to address. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly balloon all of these components, have them push forward into my inspection report. And you'll see new added this year is functionality to zoom into the selection. So on the left-hand side from the tree, if you select one of the bullet points or one of the bubble items as they've been pushed forward, you can actually zoom to that selection. So in this case, if we wanted to look at this RD1, I can simply select that dimension 6, zoom to it, and it'll take me to the actual dimension here so I know what I'm looking for. All right. Now, last year we introduced the functionality that you could take these things out of the 2D drawing inside of SolidWorks and actually push it to the standalone interface. When you purchase inspection, you actually get access to both interfaces. However, they have slightly different functionality. So in here we have that nice SolidWorks capability of grabbing everything, of it readily seeing all this information and automatically pushing forward for us. We can export all those results out to the 2D standalone project in this IX PRJ project, and then open it up in the standalone here. Now the standalone, there's been a lot of additional features that have been added this year for us. The first one that I want to highlight is some added functionality for the CMM data import. Now, in previous years, it might have been difficult to add these CMM files or to understand what the process was for this. This year, they've gone through and cleaned this process up quite a bit for those of you that do use CMMs to automatically measure these different components. Where it'll come through now, and simply add in the file, they've added better tolerancing, better ways that this thing's actually functioning to populate all the different fields. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and auto-assign, and you'll notice that it's going to assign based on positions within the drawing for us and populate all the information. I don't have to go in and tweak these things or try and move anything around this year. So let's look at the results here. We can start to see in the PDF the results that are in green are within the tolerance values have been highlighted. The tolerances that are out of spec are in red. So in this case, we're seeing this dimension with a tolerance plus or minus 0.03. We're at 0.325 or 13.25. So we're outside the tolerance range, therefore showing red. Other enhancements this year. Some new functionality for handling horizontal AS9102 forms or horizontal inspection forms. So a lot of our users we found actually use different formatting for their AS9102s or even for their in-house inspection reportings. So this year there's been enhanced functionality to allow us to export these results through the PDF process. I'll go ahead and let me add the new template here with the horizontal breakout of the dimensions. So I'll select this horizontal breakout, have it populate all of the information on that template for us, and looking at the different results, you'll notice that in the horizontal now we can actually publish the results column by column versus just strictly down row by row. So in this case, as we move from left to right, we're able to see all of the different information. Other cool enhancements this year that we're seeing, we had a lot of users that actually had old PDFs that are scanned in and they were trying to create inspection off of. The problem with this is sometimes we had difficulty actually figuring out what the thing was saying, right? So if somebody hand wrote a 9 in here, the software actually uses what's called OCR, or optical character recognition, to identify what was drawn and make it match what it's in its library. Now, for things that had low quality resolution or like italicized fonts or fonts outside of what the standards were, it was very difficult for the software to understand what was happening. So what we would see is if we went in and tried to capture a dimension like this 91.7, capturing it with the OCR would actually return back a faulty value for us. So in this case, we're actually seeing what, 9/0.7. So it didn't read the 1, it read it as a slash there for us. We'll do a couple different ones here. So we have this 20, 2/0. So a number of different instances like this where the software saw the characters and wasn't able to actually recognize what they were. So this year we've actually added some new functionality where you can build your own library. So let me go ahead and delete these. And you'll see that there's new functionality for this OCR editor. Now this OCR editor will actually open up another application for us. And we can add this drawing that we're currently looking at. And from this drawing, we can actually start to build a library. So in this case, on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll notice that I have all of the different numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, period, X. I can grab this auto extract, highlight them, and the software will automatically go in and identify the characteristics and give me a feedback report. Let me know what's going on. Now, I can go through and evaluate these values. I know when looking at this that the values are moving from 1, 2, 3, and so forth, so on. So if I look at the value field here, we'll notice it goes 1, 2, 5. So in this case, I can come in and actually edit this thing so that anytime it sees this thing in the OCR, it actually responds with a 3. Same thing with all of these. Move forward until we get to the period here. You'll notice that the period did get cut off automatically. We can adjust this clipping range that we're seeing now from this field, from the extraction field. So in this case, if I want to expand out to the left, simply pushing that thing down will give me a larger selection set. Other features like this plus-minus symbol or the diameter symbol have that same functionality. So in this case, if I grab the diameter symbol, it's going to think that this thing's a 0, right? Or an O. Or in this case, it looks like an @ sign. I can actually change the default omega value here to the diameter symbol in the extensive library. I'll do the same thing for the plus-minus. And then adjust the plus-minus symbol. So in this case, it thinks it's a 1. We'll kick this over. It's actually right there, plus-minus. Once we've created this library, we can then save this thing so it can be read in for the future for any file types that use this font set. So in this case, we have this new file extension type. It's going into the trainable OCR function, so the software will automatically see it for the future, and we can just define the type. So in this case, we'll say new library with fancy font. All right, so there's been more changes to the inspection software outside of just the OCR dictionary and the CMM import functionality. This year we've also seen that the custom properties now also support the OCR functionality. So in previous years when we wanted to type in manual project information, we could always grab things like part number, right? So if we came down to the bottom right-hand corner, I want to grab different information like this drawing number down here. I could use the OCR functionality to just highlight what I wanted and actually pull it forward for us. But all these custom properties down here were very manual. This year you'll notice when you try and type in a custom property or when you want to edit a custom property, you have that same functionality. So in this case, if I want to use serial number, there's my serial number right there on the drawing. I can simply use the OCR, grab it, pull it onto the drawing for us. Same thing with our PO number. And all that information will get populated forward. Last couple of changes that they've made to SolidWorks Inspection this year for us are for those users that do use NetInspect. You'll notice that we have that capability now to link up with the NetInspect, so it'll actually export all this information directly to your NetInspect. Simply clicking on this icon will ask you to type in your user credentials, and then it'll upload this project to your NetInspect for your vendors or for internal use. Same thing with the Quality Expert. So typing your credentials, hit publish, and it'll push all this information through to your additional softwares. All right, so again, with our inspection, the biggest changes we saw this year were the horizontal template support, the integration of NetInspect and Quality Inspection, some advanced improvements to the CMM, this new optical character recognition editor, that's going to be big, right, for all of us that have used PDFs that have been scanned in before. And we also have the ability to selectively export results. So this is not something I showed, but when we're exporting the results, we can actually say, if we've gone in and entered results from 10 different parts, we can selectively say, I want part 2, 5, and 7. That's the only reports I want, versus exporting every single one of them. Awesome. Thank you all for attending.